Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 2609 Separating Two Realms 1. The sky swayed slightly, and a complex geometric lock appeared on the surface of the artificial sun. The four light cores slid down the edge of the lock's gears, one by one, and finally merged into a huge hole. This is one of the most oppressive sights for the Sand Raiders. The golden-red light melted in midair, like a jar of amber heated to its limit being poured from the sky. All shadows on the ground were smoothed out, and the steel skeleton, gravel, and human silhouettes were compressed into a blinding white. The intense heat that the artificial sun emits in an instant is even more terrifying than the surface of the real sun. In all directions and in all areas, the once lush vines and weeds instantly turned to ashes. Su Pongzi and the others, who were fighting in the distance, were fortunate to be protected by the demon god armor, but they still felt like they were about to go blind. "It's over, I'm finished." Fatty Su's face turned deathly pale. Under such intense solar attack, his ice attribute abilities were completely rendered useless. Faced with such a terrifying energy attack, even Zhang Yi couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. The demon god armor has a light-sensing function, which prevents Zhang Yi from being forced to open his eyes by the blinding light. But that powerful pressure still slowly descended from the sky. In order to execute this move, the four-armed battle maidens also paid a heavy price, as their mechs were rapidly disintegrating. However, this is not a problem for them at all because they can be resurrected by the energy center. Within the boundless realm, I am the king within a radius of 5 kilometers. It distorts space, controls everything, and even energy will be distorted and deviated here. Zhang Yi raised his hand, his 5 fingers like a comb, and from his palm, the engraving lines of the boundless realm expanded outward in circles, like concentric ripples spreading on the surface of water. Each ripple represents a contraction and expansion. The falling light core was broken into many segments between the circles. Each segment was gently caught and then softly sent away. Finally, the 4 terrifying orbs of light transformed into 4 enormous and docile light bubbles, which drifted quietly past him and exploded silently in the distance like fireworks. The 4-armed battle maidens launched a combined attack, but Zhang Yi used the formless domain to divide most of their power. The last energy shockwave was completely absorbed by the Taishu bathrobe and could no longer cause any harm to Zhang Yi. The 10th one, come in. The afterglow of the sun still lingered on the horizon, and Zhang Yi had already raised his hand to call out names once again. He simply selected one of them with his gaze, and then lightly beckoned with his finger. The war maiden was still thousands of meters away, but her shadow was pulled first, shifting half an inch from her body. Then, her body seemed to be carried by the shadow, sliding diagonally towards Zhang Yi's chest. With her energy almost completely depleted, she had no power to resist, so storing her away was effortless. The 11th. Splash. The divine refining technique bound her tightly, and it was a very professional tortoiseshell binding. She was dragged toward Zhang Yi's chest. The 11th armed battle maiden desperately broke the chain, unleashing 3 spatial shocks that made the domain line beneath Zhang Yi's feet turn white. But at this point, resistance had lost its meaning. Zhang Yi reached out, and the war maiden also met the same fate. There are 2 more. The last 2 battle maidens stopped simultaneously and ceased their attack. They held their swords horizontally in front of them, their chests slowly opening to reveal the deepest black modules inside. That is a self-destruction level recovery point, which will record their combat data back to the Sky Core with the highest priority, but at the same time, it is also their ultimate means of perishing together with the enemy. Zhang Yi understood their intentions, and a cold smile appeared on his lips. "Want to self-destruct? Did I give you permission? You'll all be turning into my shape from now on, and I won't allow you to harm yourselves." "Just kidding," He's been drooling over these armed battle maidens with their diverse abilities and high intelligence for a long time. He didn't give the two a chance to self-destruct, quickly approached them, and stuffed them directly into the netherworld. The black energy core, which had already entered self-destruct mode, was greatly slowed down from its explosion because it entered the netherworld, where the flow of time is much slower than outside. Zhang Yi easily controlled the two energy cores, stopping their self-destruction. The square suddenly fell silent, and the wisp of sand that had been swirling in midair finally settled down. The red line in the sky continued to search for the corpses of the armed war maidens, attempting to reassemble their bodies and bring them back to life. But of course, it cannot be found. Don't worry, Your Excellency. Your armed battle maidens now belong to the Zhang family. Zhang Yi smiled and raised his head, speaking to the artificial intelligence entity in the sky that controlled everything in the inner world. The artificial sun looked as if it had been lightly tapped, but the geometric locks on its surface slowly closed, restoring calm. Zhang Yi also realized that it had to rely on the Sandsweeper robot as a terminal to issue commands for battle. However, it is unable to directly attack Zhang Yi. Or perhaps it's because its true purpose is to protect the Tiantong Tower, and it can't afford to waste resources on dealing with it. Regardless, Zhang Yi has successfully overcome the first hurdle on his journey. Zhang Yi stood in the center of the square, the rhythm of his counting still lingering on his fingertips. He looked down at his chest, where the starlight had receded, as if nothing had happened. Where did you lock them all up? Freeman flew in from a distance, his hat brim blown halfway up by the wind, his face filled with shock. Have you turned yourself into a prison? Similar, I suppose. Zhang Yi nodded, his voice flat. Their resurrection requires that light bulb to issue a rollback command. I simply unplugged their network cable. Next, as long as Zhang Yi doesn't let them return to the outside world, they will be put into standby mode. After leaving this place, Zhang Yi will have Liu Karen study them. If it can be repaired, he will have many more powerful helpers. The analogy of unplugging the internet cable is very good. Yang Xinxin landed beside him, her eyes flashing. Brother, your understanding of space has deepened again. Perhaps even the two supreme beings of the Dragon Clan will no longer be able to control you as easily as before. Zhang Yi shrugged. Who knows? In his eyes, Bai Longzi was no longer so mysterious, but his awe of Bai Longzi remained. Before he grasped the true meaning of spatial abilities, he looked at Bai Longzi like a frog in a well peering at the moon in the sky. After he understood the essence of spatial abilities, he looked at Bai Longzi like a mayfly seeing the blue sky. With just a few pointers from Ling, he made rapid progress. One can only imagine how powerful the White Dragon Prince, who had cultivated alongside Fuxi for 1,000 years, would be. In the distance, Uncle Yu's artillery fire gradually subsided, and Liang Yu's blade wind was like a refreshing rain. As the blade wind fell, the guard robots of the Sand Sweeper civilization were cut to pieces. They also held a clear advantage in the battle over there. Chapter 26:10 Separating Two Realms 2. Uncle Yu, Liang Yu, and the others engaged in an endless battle with the Sand Sweeper robots on the battlefield. Those creatures that constantly regenerate and grow stronger with each battle became their best whetstones. Uncle Yu and Liang Yu had a great time fighting, using the battles to find their own weaknesses and then improve upon them. However, Zhang Yi didn't have much time to waste here, so he went straight to the battlefield area. The realm of no form. Zhang Yi activated his ability and quickly arrived near them. Then, the divine refinement burst forth with a sky-covering black chain that tightly bound all the sand-swept robots. The guard robots of the city of Yellow Sand were dragged into the netherworld one by one. The battlefield seemed to have been suddenly powered off. The noise gradually subsided, and only the wind moved among the rolling grass and sand dunes. Phew, you're done on your end? Fatty Sue walked over, wiping the sweat from his forehead. It was really hot just now. Those guys were pretty strong. It's been a long time since we've had such a tough battle. Advanced civilizations are not to be trifled with, Li Yongyong said with a smile. Zhang Yi looked at Freeman and asked, The guards here have all been dealt with. Where is the guardian you mentioned? Freeman pointed to the sea of sand behind the city, his hat brim being lifted half an inch by the wind, and his face on the screen flashed a couple of times before settling down. The first guardian is over there. Pass through 3 gray sand ridges, and you can see a depression that looks like a ring-shaped wind gap. That's its lair. I've been here a few times before. One time I was beaten so badly that only my head was left. Luckily, I was able to repair it myself later. For more than 2 decades, Elon Freeman has been tirelessly searching for the entrance to the Skydong Tower area here. Finding his lover, Nashki, whom he met during his period of consciousness transference, became his lifelong obsession. However, Zhang Yi and his companions did not know whether they would actually be able to find Nashki after entering the Tiantong Tower. There is a high probability that this civilization has been completely destroyed, and no one has left behind any trace of it. But they didn't say it, or perhaps Elon Freeman himself was well aware of this. However, until he witnessed despair firsthand, he preferred to hold on to hope. It has to be said that his persistence is quite admirable. Zhang Yi nodded. All right, let's go over there. His gaze swept across the crowd. You all stay far back and keep watch. Don't get too close. Also, help me prevent other participating sand sweeper robots from getting close to the battlefield. He said this because he knew that the guardians of the Sand Raider civilization must be extremely powerful. These people are safer staying at a distance, and even if they stay in Zhang Yi's shadow, Zhang Yi is not entirely at ease. After all, even his myriad phenomena were affected by spatial shockwaves, let alone Mu Yan's shadow. Be safe. Yang Xinxin raised her hand in a gesture, and a fine black smoke appeared at her fingertips. We are ready to provide support whenever needed. Among everyone present, only Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen, who could pilot the super battleship, could provide Zhang Yi with combat support. Don't worry, I won't be reckless this time. Steadiness is my motto in life. Zhang Yi smiled and lightly flicked his fingertips through the air. The realm of formlessness unfolded beneath my feet. The sand waves seemed to be pressed down, and the landscape was quietly folded. He flashed through the hazy sunlight and appeared 5 kilometers away. The city of yellow sand. Zhang Yi didn't know which direction it was, but it was behind him, and there was a vast, boundless desert. This place may have been farmland or even a lake in the past, but it has long been buried by yellow sand. The wind is blowing harder here. In the center of the desert is a huge depression, several kilometers in diameter, shaped like a fingerprint pressed by the hand of heaven. In the center of the depression is a flat, black metal disc, above which hangs a light red drizzle, the faint restorative light emanating from the energy center, like an invisible net lazily covering the area. We've arrived. That thing, could it be the Sand Guardian? Zhang Yi muttered to himself, his gaze slightly raised. He could certainly see the strange black metal disc, but he couldn't tell if it was just a disc. Perhaps there were other things buried under the yellow sand. Target has appeared. Yang Xinxin's voice rang in my ears, clear and calm. The energy spectrum is rising, with multiple concurrent occurrences, which may indicate multi-module collaboration. Lu Karen's flying crows took in the entire battlefield from high above and projected it onto everyone's combat helmets. The image clearly shows that beneath the yellow sand, multiple high-energy objects of different modules are slowly reviving, and the intensity of the energy reaction has already shown a dazzling red light. Brother, be careful. Yang Xinxin reminded him in a deep voice. I will. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and at the same time, he drew the Eternal Judgment Sword, fusing it with the Demon Blade Divine Refinement. Above the black metal disc, the air was gradually swirled up. Rustle. 18-thumb-thick red lit up first, then rose higher, and a large amount of yellow sand flowed down from the metal body. The monster beneath the yellow sand, one of the guardians, the yellow sand guardian, slowly floated into the air. Those were 18 perfectly round mechanical spheres. Each sphere is entirely dark silver, with a surface covered in honeycomb-like pores and extremely fine engravings, resembling 18 miniature planets. They first rotate individually, then align themselves with each other, snapping together with some kind of invisible teeth, instantly forming a ring nearly 100 meters in diameter. The guardian of the sands, the heavenly ring. Each of the 18 spheres shone with a different crown of light, dazzling and magnificent, filled with cyberpunk beauty, leaving people in awe. The 18 abilities shone brightly on their respective modules and then interacted with each other in an orderly manner. It resembles a giant string of prayer beads or a mechanical serpent biting its own tail. On the tactical mask of Zhang Yi's demon god armor, their comprehensive energy reaction index jumped up and down in the internal vision, stopping next to the 62,000 mark. Special ability index of 62,000. Yang Xinxin counted. The 18 spheres seem to be independent, but they can be connected in parallel. Their power will not be superimposed, and the 18 spheres may have different abilities. New. Zhang Yi exhaled. His shoulders relaxed a little, and then he silently gripped the eternal sword of judgment in his hands. He narrowed his eyes. You make the first move. I want to see what kind of abilities you possess. Zhang Yi's defenses could withstand an attack index of 62,000. He needed to gather intelligence on his opponent before reacting. The other party probably already knows his specific abilities through the information provided by the core control center. The heavenly ring did not speak to him. It had no language module. It was merely a pure guardian, a simple killing machine. Here ends today's chapter. I hope you liked it. Kindly do also subscribe to my gaming channel. I have to Fina a way to survive. Thanks.
Alright, that's it for today's chapter. Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises. Thank you.